Alright guys, welcome to episode 4 of Same Circle Wrestling. I'm Seth Skinner.
And I'm Bill Hairsine.
We're going to pretty much just go over Royal Rumble, a little bit about the backlash from after that, and we're going to talk about this week's Raw. Later on this week, we're going to do a cast about NXT and SmackDown from this week as well, so stay tuned for that. It should be up around Saturday, I would assume, because we're probably going to tape it on Friday. So anyway, after Royal Rumble, Reigns got a lot of backlash from the fans, and basically they felt that Daniel Bryan was eliminated too early, which I kind of agree with. I think they probably should have had Bryan stay in a little longer, and maybe if they wanted to get Roman Reigns over, maybe keep him in the final four, maybe. And have Reigns eliminate Bryan or something like that. It would get him a little bit more over, I would have thought. But I think they were right in that. And so, basically, Triple H takes that into consideration and ends up making an announcement on the Raw after the Raw that's supposed to be after Royal Rumble. So basically, what happened was after Royal Rumble, there was really bad weather, and they ended up postponing Raw. They broadcasted from their headquarters, and it was basically just a bunch of interviews and things like that. And they ended up doing SmackDown Live later in the week, which really not a whole lot happened there. So then the week after, Triple H has an announcement. Basically says that whoever wins Bryan versus Rollins goes to face Roman Reigns at Fastlane. Now, the reason for this, and they were talking about this on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, was because basically kayfabe is dead. And if you don't know what that basically means, is it's essentially how much the fans believe in the storylines. And the reason for that is because there's so many insiders and journalists and just writers that are able to get behind the scenes in the business nowadays, and there's so much social media that the fans know what's going on all the time, and so they feel like they have influence over how people are booked. And I think that's a big reason that Daniel Bryan was thrown back into the picture here. So anyway, essentially what happens is Daniel Bryan wins, and now at Fastlane they're set up to go head-to-head. The two baby faces head-to-head, Bryan and Reigns. So that's essentially what just happened, and pretty much everything's set up for that now. I'm assuming that's going to be the main event at Fastlane. I mean, I really don't know. They haven't exactly said whether or not it's a main event or a co-main event, because they have Cena, Rusev, and probably Bray Wyatt will be in there somewhere in the picture, I'm assuming.
It is a little odd to me that we're about 2 weeks out from Fastlane and they really haven't announced much of the card for the show at all. You've got the two matches, you have Cena, Rusev, you have Bryan and Reigns, you have Triple H's call out of Sting somewhere on there, and there's not a lot else that's been announced, and that's a recurring issue with WWE and their pay-per-views here.
Yeah. And I kind of want to go back to the whole idea of this kayfabe thing, because they're kind of calling it now the reality era, because in a sense the fans do have an influence on what's going on. And back in the day you could push whoever you wanted to, and there was not as much of a problem with it because the fans believed in the storylines. Now you have fans saying, you know, oh, you guys don't want to push Daniel Bryan, so we're going to boo Reigns and basically tell you that. And I think that they're right in a sense, because Roman Reigns, I think, needs another year to develop before he is ready for a WrestleMania spotlight. I mean, he could be on WrestleMania and I would be fine with that, but it's the match that he's in. You know, I don't think he deserves to be in a match with Brock Lesnar for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania.
The issue is, I mean, Brock Lesnar, he's a very good in-ring performer, but he's never been a ring general. He's never been the kind of guy who can call a match in the ring, keep everything on track. And Roman Reigns certainly is not that guy either. So that's going to be an interesting issue. And then another issue is, has Roman Reigns ever worked a 20-minute main event? Is he even capable of that?
Right. And, you know, like, you look at his matches and you don't know, like, it's hard to say how big his moveset really is because he's really there for that end of the match, like, fire up, like, kind of like the John Cena thing where, you know, he'll pull off a couple moves and, like, just kind of destruct, like, I don't know, he's that destructive force that just kind of ends a match. And it's hard for him to draw out a long match like that. And that's why I think Daniel Bryan, you know, would be a better candidate for it, because Daniel Bryan really never got a title reign, you know, after he won at WrestleMania 30. So I think, you know, they could give him a little time with the belt, and because, you know, you don't know how long Lesnar's going to be here for. And, you know, I just feel like somebody else needs to have the belt now. It's when you don't have the belt on TV, it loses its meaning. And it needs to be, I think it's going to change at WrestleMania, but to who it goes to is really really the big question there. Also, I wanted to throw in that a couple of shows ago, I think it was the first episode or the second, we mentioned something about AJ Lee's booking, and we haven't seen AJ Lee in a while. So I think we were saying she might be leaving or something like that. But we haven't seen her in quite a while either. So, like I said, keep an eye on that because, she hasn't done anything really.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people in that situation right now where they're not really on TV, they're active, they seem like they should be due to come back, but they're not.
Yeah, and as far as comebacks, we know that Randy Orton's coming back, Bo Dallas is healthy as well, Heath Slater is healthy, and Sheamus is coming back too. So that's like a solid 4 comebacks that can be thrust into a decent storyline, and they can be thrust into them immediately, except for Heath Slater, really. He's kind of a filler. This week's Raw was, it was okay, I guess. I mean, there wasn't like a whole lot. I mean, they're kind of dragging it out to maybe next week's Raw before the Fastlane pay-per-view. I have it written down like out of order. I don't know exactly know how it started. Oh, it started with the Brian Reigns versus Kane and Big Show, and that ended with a disqualification. Brian and Reigns win that, which, I mean, you pretty much get sick of seeing Kane and Big Show over and over.
That's a large part of the problem is you got Kane and Big Show in the major matches all the time. You've got constant DQ finishes, and it just gets old. And I think we're at the point where these past few weeks with all this push, you've had more direction to the shows, but there's been a lot more padding for time, and it just leaves the show in a weird spot, really.
Right. And we also saw the Cena-Rusev feud really start to come together. That was just kind of a little spot where they kind of beat the shit out of each other. They're saying that Cena's injured or whatever, but obviously that's not real. But then we had Wyatt and Ziggler, which Bray Wyatt won this with a pinfall, which is impressive because that's a good push for Bray Wyatt. And, I think they need to start pushing him now because everybody's talking about that WrestleMania match with The Undertaker. So to get him over now is the smart thing to do.
Bray Wyatt looked incredibly strong going on after Ziggler. I noticed the end of the match they had Wyatt hit that clothesline outside of the ring, and there's a solid minute where Ziggler's just out and Wyatt just throws him in the ring and hits Sister Abigail for the finish with no resistance from him. Mm-hmm. It's almost absurd how strong they're booking him now.
And I think you can make that move as strong as you want it to, really. Because it's an innovative move, and it has a lot of impact when he hits it. So you can really make that move as strong as you want. It's not like Big Show's KO punch where it's a stupid looking move, and for some reason it has a ton of impact.
And another thing is, I've actually seen him hit it from a running start before, so there's at least another variation of it you can hit. So
yeah.
It can have quite a few different applications in different situations.
Yeah. And also, Paige wins this week. She's got a match with Nikki Bella at the pay-per-view. So I'm going to have to say that Paige is going to end up winning that and take the belt back. Because I think like I said, I think that's what the fans want, ultimately, and I think that's what they're going to go with.
I'm actually leaning towards Nikki Bella winning because they really need to establish someone else other than Paige in that division. You've got Natty, who's a great worker. You have Naomi. You have all these people who can work, but they've really been nowhere in the storyline. And I think they at least need a foil for Paige while AJ's out for at least this period of time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see her go over at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you don't have any established heels in that division. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, but I still, I would ultimately say Paige. Because, that belt can change as many times as they want it to, That could be a feud for a while. Because they're both going strong in that division. Then there was a Brock Lesnar promo with Paul Heyman talking, basically just saying the usual shit that he says before a pay-per-view. Just talking shit to whoever wins Reigns Bryan. And he said Tookus.
Breaking out the Tookus was probably the highlight of the promo. By Heyman's standards, it was awfully underwhelming. It was really more of the same that we've seen from him for the past 6 months, however long.
Right, and that's, I like Heyman a lot, but it's like, at a certain point, you gotta step it up and, actually say something that's gonna apply to the match or the storyline. And then there was a tag team match between the New Day and Stardust and Goldust, which somehow the New Day wins this. I guess it's just to develop kind of the Stardust Goldust kind of bickering type thing that they're doing right now. Stardust basically just bounces and right at the beginning of the match, and they're basically just kind of teasing maybe a Stardust versus Goldust match, possibly at a pay-per-view coming soon. But I think ultimately they're just teasing a breakup between the two. Because Goldust is getting old.
Pretty much everyone saw this breakup storyline coming, but I'm glad they're at least going about it in an interesting way. They're trying to build up the storyline of Cody going insane and the Stardust persona taking over, and it seems like Goldust might be fighting to bring Cody Rhodes back out, and that's actually a pretty interesting direction to take it. I was impressed.
So yeah, then Triple H basically comes out and calls out Sting. Well, says he's going to call out Sting at Fastlane, so he's announcing his call out. And there's a Sting promo that basically happens, a couple of spots around the ring light up and all this shit. And the Titantron basically just says that Sting accepts. So this is all basically turning out the way we expected it to. There's going to be a showdown or a face-off at Fastlane and then a match at WrestleMania. Which, the thing about it is Sting is a lot more cryptic than, really anybody in the WWE right at this point. Even Bray Wyatt is as cryptic as Bray Wyatt is. The thing about him is he doesn't ever seem to really say anything with his messages. He never really develops a story through his promos. And as creepy and as I say, cryptic as they are, they don't really go anywhere.
I feel like that's at least been rectified a bit in the past couple weeks with the promos now, that they don't have an explicit point, but he's obviously hinting towards the match with Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I think that comes through pretty strongly.
Yeah, he's made multiple references, I forgot what he said. He said he's not afraid of anybody, dead or alive, or whatever. And that's a dead giveaway. Okay, and then we had Tyson Kidd and Cesaro go over the Usos, which, that's pretty much expected now. I think that Tyson Kidd and Cesaro are going to get a pretty decent push in the next year or two if they stay healthy. And I think it's a good call because the Usos, as good as they are, they're getting stale.
They've been getting stale for months, really.
Not as stale as Kane and Big Show. So yeah, Mizdow basically has a singles match. Technically it's a singles match, but obviously you got the whole Miz thing. And he's just basically getting closer and closer, and every time we have an episode we talk about it, and it's looming and it's very much imminent. But the question is when, and I think WrestleMania is almost a time for that, for a Mizdow singles push.
I was worried how they'd go about having the Miz and Mizdow angle carry on now that Mizdow is no longer the stunt double, but I think it was a nice twist they put on it with having Mizdow work the match and Miz on the mic interrupting him and shit.
Yeah.
That was a different spin, and I actually liked how that turned out, and I kind of hope they keep up with it.
So then Ambrose wins over Curtis Axel, basically just a promo for his appearance at the pay-per-view. And then the main event was a 5-on-2, Bryan and Reigns versus The Authority. Bryan and Reigns win somehow. Reigns ends up spearing Bryan at the end, and it's leading into another week of this feud before the pay-per-view. So ultimately, I thought it was a decent Raw. I mean, it's one of those Raws where they're kind of just dragging things out till the next week, you know what I mean? But I think Fastlane is going to be a good pay-per-view because of the Sting appearance. There's going to be, I think, the Bryan Reigns match is going to be good. But I think, ultimately, I think Roman Reigns is going to be at the top of that pay-per-view, as much as the fans disagree with it. But we'll talk more about that next time. It's just me and Bill tonight, but we got another show coming, like I said earlier. We got one coming on Saturday. And if anybody is interested in being on the show, we got a WrestleMania panel coming up in a couple weeks, and we basically just want anybody to come on and just talk with us about it. If you have the free time, let us know on Facebook. Get a hold of one of us, and we'll get you in here. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.